Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss what appears to be the result of the TV debate last night. Rishi Sunak, as he'd threatened, decided to push a no-holds-barred street fighting approach with all the now expected interruptions and peddling easy answers. Lots of Conservative commentators, including candidates, roared approvingly on social media. This is the fight from Sunak that they wanted, was what they were saying. The question is, did it actually work on the public? Professor John Curtis made a point I've made myself for a long time. He first of all said that it was really too late for Sunak to do much now, and that he'd made a terrible mistake in focusing on taxes and immigration instead of the cost of living and healthcare. And you do not need to be the country's foremost polling expert to see that. It has been as clear as day consistently in the polls that what people cared about was the cost of living crisis and the NHS. Sunak was pushing the wrong policies. In fact, on tax, it was absolutely mad because people, even a lot of Conservative voters, were saying, we will pay the taxes. Can you spend it on public services, please? If his aim was to win votes over, he was adopting the wrong policies. He pursued policies blindly in order to keep his fractured party together. Didn't really seem to have very much to do with electoral strategy. The story of the last 10 years of the Tory government, really. Each leader from David Cameron onwards has prioritised keeping the swivel-eyed loons on side over voters. And they've finally run out of road. And it hasn't helped that Rishi Sunak is just simply not an able politician on any level either. But all that aside, Sunak could in theory have still won some converts based on his performance last night. It will have been watched by millions of people, including, you would imagine, those crucial, or at least a fair number of those crucial, undecided, formerly Conservative voters. So how did he do as far as people are concerned? Well, YouGov were first out with a poll which basically gave it as a dead heat between Starmer and Sunak. That suited Starmer. He's ahead, well ahead. The campaign has been all about carrying the Ming vase across the highly polished floor. He just had to not slip up. A no-score draw, good for him. It's Sunak who needed to make the gains. Another poll gave Starmer actually a lead, but again, doesn't really matter. The YouGov one was the most destructive because they also had a breakdown for numerous categories. And importantly, a comparison with the same poll conducted after the first TV debate over 3 weeks ago. The results, almost exactly the same. Remarkably, almost exactly the same. In other words, on the basis of polls from people who watched the debates, Sunak has not made any distance at all in the last few weeks. This is part of the reason why the general polling has continued to get worse for the Tories. The best news for Sunak was that an overwhelming number of 2019 Conservative voters felt that he was the most trustworthy, the most likeable, and the most prime ministerial. But given that those figures were largely the same as 3 weeks ago, and actually, if you want to nitpick, slightly lower than 3 weeks ago, those who were lauding Sunak for his performance last night don't really seem to have any cause to do so. There's nothing in the polls that, suggests that he did well at all. I would suggest that these people have approved because they think in their own heads that that combative style is objectively good. There's just no polling evidence to suggest it's worked on the public, though. Still, the Conservatives were not putting all their eggs in one basket. They're not quite stupid enough to leave their fate entirely in Sunak's hands. During the debates, they stooped to the same trick they used in 2019. We all knew they would, didn't we? They turned the Conservative campaign press office Twitter account into a fake fact-checking account to spin a load of lies about the points being raised in the debate, as well as a load of other spurious issues. During the next Parliament, there really must be legislation passed to deal with this basic level of dishonesty. It is incredible that a company selling chocolate bars is not allowed to deliberately mislead in its advertising, and yet political parties during an election campaign can tell any lie they like, disguise their true nature, and there is no law stopping them. Yet again, politics is held to a much lower standard than literally everything and everyone else. They also launched a massive tsunami of misleading social media adverts, including, again, on blatantly made-up Labour policies. We talked about this a few days ago. Labour, there's going to be a ULEZ there, and there's a ULEZ there. Oh, where do you live? Oh, yeah, there's a ULEZ coming there. Oh, and next month, by the way. oh, it's not, this isn't something that's going to happen in a few years. In July, ULEZ were everywhere. ULEZ for you, ULEZ for you, ULEZ for everyone. No, of course not. No such policy. And yet virtually no mention in the mainstream media about these dirty tricks. But I did say we'd have to price them in. It was inevitable that they were going to do this. They were dirty enough in 2019. They were dirty enough in 2017. Actually, they're just dirty enough for every election. But 2019 was really beyond the pale in many ways. And they were on course for a win from start to finish then. So, of course, they were going to be, if anything, even worse this time around. They are facing an existential threat. Because the other notable news from yesterday was the publication of 2 new MRP polls. One of them showed the Tories perilously close to third place. And the other showed them actually in third place. Now, I am just going to warn you, the one putting them in third place is highly suspect. I am not going to be including it in my little collection of MRP combos because it has some utterly ridiculous results in it. And I don't just mean like some of the Scotland results where we know there are errors there for everyone. But the other MRP, the We Think, commissioned by The Economist, that's interesting. It's not obviously terrible, so I'm including that one. So we may well be able to conclude that things are getting tighter in the roughly 100 seats that the Tories look like having a chance in still. But as I've been saying a lot lately, it's really fine margins. They could win 50 seats or they could win 150. And you know what? I think each result would be as likely as each other. That's how tight a lot of these seats are looking. The Tory strategy now is, as I suggested a few days ago, persuade undecided voters to turn up and vote for Sunak as somehow better than Starmer's Labour. That's why they're pushing these lies. And they're pushing these lies now. You might think, why are they pushing them so late? To give Labour as little time as possible to debunk them before the election. Ordinarily, I would be tempted to think it's just not going to work. Sunak may have won the cheers of his supporters last night. The polling has given him no reason to believe it was a job well done. The problem with making up fantasy Labour policies is that the Tories have lost credibility. Also, this fascination with taxation, when even a lot of Conservative voters are comfortable with the taxes, if it will boost public services. They prioritise the public services. The Tories are pushing a line which works at the end of a Labour government. Oh, we can do all of this and we can do it for lower taxes. But they're trying to say the same thing now. But people are looking around and what do you mean you can do all of this? All of what? All of what? What are we getting for these lower taxes? Nothing's working. Keep the taxes, make stuff work. The irony is, with all this Tory tax talk, they've actually set Labour up. They've set the public up effectively to expect tax rises from Labour. And because the public want the public services more, as long as Labour deliver those public services, do you know what? People aren't going to quibble about Labour's tax policies. People will be happy. Still, in Sunak's favour, Farage may be having difficulty over his Ukraine comments. One pollster seemed to think it is responsible for Reform's recent drop in the polls. I think we need a bit more data to be confident of that. It could just as easily be voters starting to think strategically about who can realistically win, as often happens at this time as you get close to polling day. Mind you, I did think a couple of silver linings came out of yesterday. I did have a couple of thoughts. First, before the election was called, I warned you all this would be the dirtiest election campaign I'd ever known. I seem to recall saying it would be deeply unpleasant, but at least the ending would be good. It has been unpleasant, for some people deeply unpleasant, for trans people in particular, but such was the chaotic nature of the Tory campaign, there's been lots of comedy moments as well. So arguably it hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be. I know there's still a week to go and this will be the worst week, but still. The Tories are in a worse position now than they were at the start. That was always on the cards, of course, but you wouldn't have been sure it would happen. So at least they're not profiting from their evil this time. Second silver lining, you might think an odd one. Mainstream media today, all furiously batting for Sunak. Sounds odd to approve of that, but I feel way more comfortable, I don't know about you, way more comfortable with a Labour government getting ready to win a landslide. And you know what? The mainstream media are still against them. The Sun are still against them. Against the man who tried to prosecute the media dregs over the phone hacking scandal. And although nothing has been promised or even hinted at, as far as I can tell, it at least gives me hope of maybe some media reforms. But first things first, 7 more days, the polls are open for those who don't have postal ballots. If it hasn't arrived, can you chase it up? Because, you need that. Another day after that, and we find out the lay of the land for the next few years. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.